What's up, guys? Welcome to another NHL trade breakdown. This time it involves three teams: the Florida Panthers, Detroit Red Wings, and the Anaheim Ducks. So, Givani Smith heads to Florida, Danny O'Regan heads to Detroit, and Michael Zotto heads to the Ducks. Yes, this is technically an AHL trade since these guys were all playing in the AHL, but two of them have a lot of NHL experience. And, Michael Delzato was sent down to San Diego, which is the AHL team of the Anaheim Ducks. But, they do gain experience in a player like Michael Delzato. In terms of Giovanni Smith, they add some depth scoring, most likely a fourth line player. And Danny O'Regan, just, an AHL player, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I mean, Delzato's an interesting one just because he's played in Anaheim before. He had 3 points in 12 games in 18-19 with the Ducks, and then in 19-20 had 49 games played, 2 goals, 13 assists for 15 points. Look, he's played 736 NHL games. He's past his prime now. He's 32 years old, but he's a guy that I think can help the Ducks out. He's had some good hockey in Anaheim when he was there originally. He's a guy that I think has bounced around from different teams in the NHL, but and has never really found a permanent home. But you know
Definitely
what?
a journeyman.
That's it. He's a journeyman, but you know what? He's a guy that I think can definitely help the Ducks out if in case of injuries or even if they just want him as a depth guy, just to fill in some holes and stuff. I think Del Zotto's a good pickup for the Ducks. And again, they didn't really have to give up much to do it, so you know what? It's a good move
Well,
for them. I could see him potentially playing as a seventh defenseman, maybe even a top six defenseman. But I know right now he was sent down to the AHL. That's not a surprising move for him. Like I said, he is past his prime, so it really depends on what the Ducks want to do with him. But this is kind of just a nothing move for them. It's not. There's no real risk involved. But in terms of NHL experience, like you said before, he brings a lot of it, and so I think that that's going to help the Ducks in terms of their development for the rookies. I would say to have a guy like that and at least around them in their system. So
yeah, and the way I see it is that, with guys like Dmitry Kulikov or John Klimberg who are expected to be traded at the deadline,
yeah,
even another name would be Kevin Shattenkirk.
yeah,
After the deadline, they're gonna have to call up somebody, right? They need defensemen. So Michael Delzato essentially would be that guy. Either one of these guys get traded, or maybe all three, or just two out of the three, depending on the offers they
yeah.
get and how much of a seller they want to be. Michael Delzato would definitely be a good guy to call up. He has experience. He has connections to the organization. He's played for the team, like you were saying before. So that's my take on the Michael Delzato, um, you know, end
Mo-
of this deal.
yeah.
Then there's the Florida Panthers, and
Yeah,
as of
go
right
ahead, Giovanni.
now, just looking at the lineup, obviously, it's not the best looking lineup compared to last year's Florida Panthers, but
Yeah.
Giovanni Smith could find himself on the fourth line, or most likely the odd man out, just as a healthy scratch, or just simply playing in the AHL team.
Giovanni Smith's an interesting guy too because he's a guy that's a fighter. He's an enforcer. He's one of those. He reminds me a lot of Ryan Reeves, a little bit, in the way he plays. I think Florida gets this guy. I think he's gonna still stay in the AHL. It's not a bad move for them AHL wise and even NHL wise. He's a guy that look if they want a little bit of toughness in their lineup, they call him up to get a little bit of toughness. I think it's always good to have toughness in your lineup. And I think with Giovanni Smith, he brings that. He's a guy that's going to go and fight. He's a guy that's not afraid to, piss people off and get it under people's skin. And I think when you're Florida and at the position that they're at now this season, I think acquiring a guy like Giovanni Smith could help them, in games that they need a big, moment or a big fight or someone to go and piss the other team off. I think that's a good move for them. He's not going to play much in the NHL. He's not going to play a lot of games, but when he does come in, I think he'll make an impact, and he'll be a guy that, like I said, will get under people's skin and play that depth role for them. A guy that's probably going to play like 6-7 minutes a night, but when he's on the ice, he's going to go and be a shit disturber. So I like this move for Florida. Like I said, it's a low risk move, kind of like Del Zotto. Yes, he's got less NHL experience, but you know what? 14 points in 85 career NHL games. That's fourth line numbers.
Yeah,
So that's not a bad player to get. And look,
only 24 years old
he's
too,
still
so
24 years
fairly
old.
young.
So he's still, like you said, fairly young. So I don't mind this move for Florida at all. Like I said, I think it brings some good toughness for them whenever they need it. And he's a guy that he's one of the most hated players in the AHL. He's a guy that nobody likes to play against because him and his brother, who plays for Tampa Bay's affiliate, I believe. So it's kind of cool that they're both near each other, which is nice. But I think for him, like I said, he's one of the most hated players in the AHL to play against because he's so tough, and he's always getting under people's skin that people don't want to play against him. So I think that that's good for Florida. They can use that to their advantage. And he's a guy that can put up points as well every now and then. He's a guy that can put the puck in the net when he feels like it as well. Like I said, not the best goal scorer, but he can give you a goal here or there,
Yeah,
which is
Zotto and Smith, like we were alluding to before, have NHL experience.
yeah,
Then the last piece of this deal,
Danny
and
Danny O'Regan.
Danny O'Regan. So yeah, he's had NHL experience, but not as much as the other two, and also the impact as well. The other two have a bigger impact essentially. Danny O'Regan, essentially not really anybody that really recognizes him by name. You really have to go digging deep to really figure out or find out what type of player he is and how many points he has and where he's played for. What are your thoughts on this? In my opinion, it's just this is essentially a guy that's
It's
gonna
just
spend
it's
most of his time in the AHL.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't really see him doing anything. I know he's gonna end up playing in Detroit. I don't see him as an NHLer. I really don't. I think
Yeah,
Detroit's already got a really good
yeah. Just look
NHL
at the lineup
core.
right now. He doesn't replace
Yeah,
anybody.
he's going to be a pure AHL guy. I think if Detroit get a lot of injuries, he may be a guy they call up to potentially fill in a role on a fourth line. But Danny O'Regan doesn't really have anything going for him in terms of potentially having an NHL career, in my opinion. Like I said, he doesn't really do much. He's played only 30 NHL games in his career. He's mainly an AHLer. He has good numbers in the AHL. I think he's going to help the Detroit AHL team, which is good. Which is always good to have, especially if you have young guys in the AHL that are playing there. It's always good to have a veteran presence that helps out. So I think I'll be honest. If I have to look at the three teams in this trade, I think Detroit comes out the worst out of the three,
I
just
agree
because
with that.
they get the
Yeah,
least experienced player. But I think Florida comes out with not Florida, Anaheim comes out with the best deal here because they get the most experienced defenseman. They get a guy they know
yeah.
and they're used to, and they can actually get NHL games out of him too. So I think the Ducks win this deal. I think Detroit has probably the worst player out of the three, so they lose this deal. And then Florida's just kind of in the middle, and they just kind of get
Yeah,
themselves a
for
decent
me,
player.
essentially, the way I view it,
Yeah,
Detroit gets an AHL player.
yeah,
Givani Smith with Florida could do something because he is the youngest player in this three-way trade.
yep,
And then you have Del Zotto, which essentially allows the Ducks to move defensemen like Shattenkirk,
exactly.
Klinberg, and potentially calling up Dozado for experience. So we'll see what happens in the following months leading through the NHL 2023 deadline. And until then, guys, make sure to comment in the comment section below who won this deal. Does this deal even matter at this point? What can lead up to heading to the deadline? We'd like to hear your thoughts, and Detroit fans, Duck fans, and Florida Panther fans. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Young Guns Podcast.